I was sitting in my own living room nursing a fractured right arm in a heavy blue sling when the laundry basket hit the floor next to my slippers. I blinked, pulling myself out of the dull ache radiating from my shoulder. My daughter-in-law, Sarah, stood over me. She had one hand on her hip, her phone clutched in the other, not even bothering to make eye contact. "Wash my clothes!" Sarah demanded, kicking the plastic basket closer to my feet. "And I want dinner. Now." I looked at the basket spilling over with her gym clothes and work blouses. Then I looked at my right arm strapped tightly across my chest after a nasty fall on the porch stairs 3 days ago. The doctor had been very clear about keeping it immobilized. Sarah had been in the room when he said it. "No," I replied, keeping my voice entirely steady. Sarah's head snapped up. She hated hearing that word. She had spent the last 6 months turning my house into her personal hotel, and she wasn't used to the management talking back. Before she could open her mouth, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. My son David walked in, wiping grease off his hands with a rag. He took one look at his wife's annoyed expression and immediately sighed, shoulders slumping. He never asked what was happening. He just chose the path of least resistance. "Mom, come on," David muttered. "Apologize to my wife. Just do what she asks. She had a long day." I looked past my son, staring directly at Sarah. She was smirking. It was a small, satisfied expression, a clear signal that she had won. She had the man of the house trained, and by extension, she thought she had me trained too. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, ignoring the sharp throb in my collarbone. I walked over to the hallway table, picked up my purse with my good hand, and grabbed my coat. "Where are you going?" David asked, confusion replacing his annoyance. I didn't answer him. I opened the front door, stepped out into the crisp evening air, and pulled it shut behind me. It was the easiest decision I ever made. I called a rideshare from the sidewalk and waited under the street lamp. The pain medication was starting to wear off, but my mind had never felt clearer. 6 months ago, David and Sarah asked to move in. They claimed they were saving for a down payment on their own place. My husband had passed away 2 years prior, and the 4-bedroom house felt empty. I thought I was helping my son build his future. Instead, I gave up my present. Within weeks, they had taken over the master bedroom because Sarah needed the walk-in closet. My favorite reading chair was moved to the basement. My grocery bills tripled. I became a live-in maid, cooking their meals and cleaning their messes while they worked, went out with friends, and treated me like a silent appliance. The rideshare pulled up. I gave the driver the address of my friend Martha, who lived about 20 minutes across town. When Martha opened her door, she didn't ask a barrage of questions. She took one look at my sling, my purse, and the tight line of my mouth. She simply stepped aside, let me in, and put the kettle on. Sitting at her kitchen island, warming my left hand on a mug of chamomile tea, I felt the tension slowly drain from my neck. "They kicked you out," Martha finally asked, her voice low and protective. "No," I answered, taking a slow sip. I walked out. Sarah wanted me to do her laundry and cook her dinner with one good arm. David told me to apologize. Martha shook her head in disgust. "What are you going to do, Linda?" I looked at the dark window, seeing my own reflection. I didn't feel sorry for myself. I felt foolish for letting it go on this long, but that was over now. "I'm going to let them be adults," I stated. Tomorrow, the free ride was ending. I was going to sleep soundly tonight, knowing they were currently staring at an empty kitchen, waiting for a dinner that was never going to arrive. I woke up the next morning in Martha's spare room. My phone screen was lit up with notifications. 4 missed calls from David, and a string of texts. "Mom, where are you? Sarah is really upset. We don't have anything for breakfast. Call me." Not a single message asking how my arm felt. Not one asking if I was safe. Just demands. I swiped the notifications away without replying. After Martha left for her morning walk, I sat at the small desk in the corner and opened my laptop. Typing with one hand was frustratingly slow, but I had all the time in the world. When they first moved in, I had added David as an authorized user on one of my credit cards. It was supposed to be strictly for household groceries, a way to help them save their actual paychecks for their future house. Over the last few months, I had noticed the charges creeping up, but I had avoided looking too closely because I hated conflict. I logged into my banking portal and pulled up the recent statements. The grocery store charges were there, but so were charges for Sarah's weekly nail appointments, 2 streaming service subscriptions, and a $150 dinner at a downtown steakhouse from just last week. They weren't saving money. They were spending mine. I navigated to the account settings. My mouse hovered over David's name. There was no hesitation. I clicked Remove Authorized User and confirmed the action. The system processed it immediately. Next, I opened a new tab and logged into my checking account. I set up a transfer, moving the bulk of my savings into a secondary account that had no physical debit card attached to it, just to be safe. I closed the laptop, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. The bank wouldn't notify him. He would only find out the hard way. I wondered how long it would take for them to realize the plastic in their wallets was now completely useless. It took exactly 2 days. Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on Martha's back patio, enjoying the sunshine, when my phone rang. It was David. I let it ring 3 times before sliding my finger across the screen to answer. "Mom, finally," David breathed, sounding panicked. "Look, there's something wrong with the bank. I'm at the grocery store and your card keeps declining. The cashier tried it 3 times. I adjusted my sling comfortably. "There's nothing wrong with the bank, David." "I canceled your card." Dead silence on the other end. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. "You... what? Why?" he stammered. "Because it's my card, and I am no longer funding your lifestyle," I replied evenly. "You both have full-time jobs. You can pay for your own groceries." I heard shuffling, and then Sarah's sharp voice came through the speaker. She had snatched the phone from him. "Are you serious right now? We have a cart full of food. How are we supposed to pay for this with the money you've been saving by living in my house rent-free for 6 months?" I answered. "You're being ridiculous. Just turn the card back on," she demanded. "No," I said, and ended the call. I didn't turn my phone off. I just put it on silent and slipped it into my pocket. Later that afternoon, Martha drove me to a quiet neighborhood on the other side of town. I had scheduled a viewing for a lovely ground-floor apartment in a secure building. It had large windows, a modern kitchen, and absolutely no stairs. The property manager showed us around. It was peaceful. It felt like breathing fresh air after being stuck in a dusty room. I didn't need a mortgage. I had my pension and the savings I had protected. I signed the lease agreement right there at the kitchen counter, using my left hand to awkwardly scratch my signature. I was shrinking my world down to a size that only fit me, and it felt perfect. A week passed. My arm was healing nicely, the sharp pain dulling to a manageable ache. I knew David and Sarah were at work on Tuesday afternoon, so I asked Martha to drop me off at my house. I needed to pick up my mail, some important documents, and a few warmer sweaters. Walking through my own front door felt strange. The house was a disaster zone. The sink was piled high with crusty dishes, laundry was scattered across the living room sofa, and a half-empty pizza box sat on the coffee table. They had clearly been waiting for the maid to return. I ignored the mess. I walked straight to my home office, pulled open the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet, and gathered the latest utility bills. Water, electricity, gas, and internet. All of them were in my name, automatically deducted from my account every month. Sitting at my old desk, I picked up the landline. It took about 45 minutes to get through all the customer service menus. For the electric and gas, I scheduled a shut-off for the last day of the current month. For the internet, I canceled it effective immediately. They could use their cell data to stream their shows. I packed my documents and sweaters into a small, rolling suitcase. Before leaving, I took the spare house key from the hook by the door and dropped it into my purse. As I rolled my suitcase down the driveway to where Martha was waiting in her car, I looked back at the large, two-story house. My husband and I had built good memories there, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a storage unit for people who didn't respect me. If David and Sarah wanted to play house, they were going to start paying the admission fee. I got into Martha's car, entirely untroubled by the storm I had just set in motion. David showed up at Martha's house 3 days later. He looked exhausted, his hair uncombed, wearing a wrinkled shirt. Martha let him in, but stayed in the kitchen giving us space while keeping a watchful eye. I sat on the sofa, resting my arm on a pillow. "Mom, the internet is down." David started skipping any greeting. "And I got a notice in the mail from the electric company saying service is being terminated next week. Did you forget to pay the bill?" I reached onto the coffee table and pushed a manila envelope toward him. "I didn't forget anything. Those are the utility transfer forms. If you want the lights to stay on, you need to put the accounts in your name and set up your own payment methods." David stared at the envelope like it was a live snake. "Put it in my name." "Mom, we can't afford the utilities on this house. The heating bill alone is huge." "Then you should put on a sweater," I observed calmly. He dropped onto the armchair across from me, running a hand over his face. "Sarah is furious. She has to work from home tomorrow and there's no Wi-Fi. When are you coming back to fix this?" "I'm not coming back, David." I stated my voice clear and final. His head snapped up. "What do you mean, you're not coming back? It's your house. It is my house, but it's not my home anymore," I replied. "I'm tired of being treated like a servant by your wife while you stand there and watch." So I removed myself from the situation. "We were just stressed," he pleaded, leaning forward. "Look, I'll talk to Sarah. We'll help out more. Just come home and turn the cards back on." He didn't want his mother back. He wanted his comfort back. "The cards stay off. The bills are yours now." I told him, standing up to signal the conversation was over. "You need to leave, David. I need to rest my arm." He walked out, looking utterly lost, finally realizing this wasn't a tantrum. I was completely serious. The next morning, I made a phone call to Greg, a local real estate agent who had sold several houses in my neighborhood over the years. I explained the situation simply. The house was fully paid off. The deed was solely in my name, and I wanted to put it on the market immediately. I didn't need top dollar. I just wanted a clean, fast sale. "I can definitely help you with that, Linda," Greg said over the phone. "I'd like to come by and take some exterior photos, maybe measure the lot size to get the listing drafted." "Are the current occupants aware?" "My son is staying there temporarily," I replied. "You can go ahead and take the exterior photos today. Don't worry about the inside just yet." Later that afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed Sarah's name. I let it ring. A minute later, David called. I answered. "Mom, why is there a man in a suit walking around our front yard taking pictures?" David's voice was high-pitched, bordering on panic. "That's Greg. He's my real estate agent," I answered, adjusting my sling. "He's preparing the listing." "The listing? You're selling the house," David shouted. I could hear Sarah screaming something unintelligible in the background. It's too big for me, David," I explained patiently. "And since I'm moving into an apartment, I don't need a 4-bedroom property." "You can't do this?" "Where are we supposed to live? You've had 6 months of free rent, free utilities, and free groceries," I reminded him. "You told me you were saving for your own place. It's time to go buy it." "We don't have the money." David finally admitted the truth, bursting out of him. "Sarah spent it. We don't have a down payment. I felt a brief flicker of pity for him, but I extinguished it quickly. That is a conversation you need to have with your wife. You have 30 days to find an apartment and pack your things. The house goes on the market next week. I hung up, leaving him to face the reality he had created. I didn't wait for the 30 days to end before getting my things. 2 weeks after the phone call, I hired a professional moving company. I scheduled them for a Tuesday morning, knowing exactly what time David and Sarah left for their offices. Martha drove me over, and I unlocked the front door with my left hand. The house was eerily quiet, though still messy. I directed the movers efficiently. I took my good dining room, set the antique dresser that belonged to my grandmother, my comfortable mattress, and the solid oak bookshelf from the den. I packed up my favorite cookware, the good silverware, and all my personal documents. I left them the guest bed. They had been using the living room sofa they had stained, and the cheap television. As the movers loaded the truck, I walked through the empty rooms. The echo of my footsteps against the hardwood floors felt entirely different now. It didn't feel lonely. It felt like space. Just as the movers were closing the back of the truck, a car pulled into the driveway. It was Sarah. She must have forgotten something and come home on her lunch break. She slammed her car door, staring at the moving truck and then at me, standing on the porch. "What are you doing?" she demanded, marching up the walkway. "You're taking all the furniture." "I'm taking my furniture." I corrected her, stepping down to meet her on the walkway. "You're unbelievable," she sneered, crossing her arms. "You're really going to make your own son homeless just because I asked you to do a load of laundry." I looked at her, refusing to let her twist the narrative. "I'm selling my house because I no longer wish to live with people who treat me like dirt." "You are adults. Act like it." I walked past her, got into Martha's car, and didn't look back as we drove away. The house sold much faster than I anticipated. A young family moving from out of state loved the neighborhood and made a cash offer just below asking price. I accepted it immediately. With the closing date approaching, reality finally crashed down on David and Sarah. I was sitting in my new apartment watching the morning news when a sharp knock sounded at my door. I checked the peephole. It was David and Sarah. I opened the door, keeping the security chain attached. "Mom, please open the door," David pleaded. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, his posture defeated. "What do you want, David?" I asked through the gap. Sarah pushed forward, forcing a fake, tight smile. "Linda, we need to talk. The new owners want us out by Friday. We haven't found a place yet. Rents are too high. We need to stay here with you for a few weeks until we figure it out." I looked at her. She wasn't asking. She was informing me. She looked past my shoulder, scanning my new apartment, already sizing up where she would put her things. "No," I said, simply. Sarah's fake smile vanished. "Excuse me, you have a second bedroom in there. We are family." "You didn't act like family when you ordered me to serve you with a broken arm," I reminded her. "You acted like I was a burden." I looked at my son. "I love you, David, but I am done being your safety net. You let your wife disrespect me in my own home, and you spent my money behind my back." I reached onto the entryway table, picked up the final unpaid water bill from the old house, and slipped it through the gap in the door. "Here is your final bill," I said. "Pay it." I unlatched the chain just long enough to shut the door firmly in their faces. I locked the deadbolt. I heard Sarah start to yell, but the thick walls of my new building muffled her voice until they eventually walked away. 3 months have passed since I closed that door. My arm is fully healed now. I still do my physical therapy exercises every morning in my sunny living room, but the sling is long gone, packed away in a closet. The money from the house sale is sitting securely in my bank account, generating a modest amount of interest. I don't have to worry about finances, and more importantly, I don't have to worry about anyone draining them. David and Sarah ended up renting a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. They had to sell Sarah's designer bags to cover the security deposit. I heard this through the grapevine, not from them. David tried to call me a week before Thanksgiving, hinting that they didn't have space to cook a turkey. I didn't invite them over. Instead, I met him for a quick cup of coffee at a local diner the next day. I paid for my own black coffee and left. Sarah was not invited, and I made it clear she wouldn't be welcome in my home again until she could treat me with basic human decency. I'm not holding my breath. My days are quiet now. I wake up when I want to. I cook meals I actually enjoy. I read books without a television blaring in the background, and I never ever do anyone else's laundry. Martha comes over on Sundays, and we drink wine on my small patio. Sometimes I think back to that evening standing in the hallway with a throbbing arm looking at Sarah's smirk. I used to think endurance was a sign of strength. I thought keeping the peace made me a good mother. I know better now. True strength isn't letting people walk all over you. True strength is knowing exactly where your front door is and having the courage to lock it from the inside.